Yes, it has been a while, and we are doing a very brief astrology update. I'm not as organised as usual. I've been fiercely setting up a lot of new content that I will be bringing to you guys. But as I say, it is taking a long time, especially because I'm juggling two jobs at the moment. But we are going to skim over the surface of some things that are going on in the sky at the moment so that you can have some context, especially for those of you that watch my twin flame content. For a lot of you, you also receive psychic readings from me. And eons ago, I used to cover the astrology. So we are moving back to that. And yes, new content will be coming. But it is, like I said, taking a lot of time to get it done in the background. Now, for those of you that don't know, I am Yildiz. I'm going to be your host tonight. It is 9 p.m. here at this point in time. I have been recording all day and prepping things in the background. And some disclaimers very quickly. There are certain disclaimers we do have to actually mention in the context of what is going on. Now, I have no idea if anyone's awake. So if you're not, and you do jump onto this later, I did have to change the date several times. So sorry for that, but it was because I had to get everything up in the streaming deck. In typical South Node style, I was really noticing a lot of things that weren't correct. And I was like, oh God, I've got to edit that. I've got to change that. And again, over the last few weeks, and I did really say, especially inside my actual videos, was that a lot of us would feel that May was going to feel like two parts. So in part of it, you were going to directly feel as though it was very different to the rest of this month coming up. We are going to be moving into a very busy energy. And last week, we really did have a lot of challenges. So we are going to look down at the transits and then come back. And if there's anyone live, I will answer some of your questions. That light is horrendously bright, but we'll sort that out later. So what do we need to cover? What are we going to cover? Number one. Okay, the previous transits of the nodes. What we are dealing with at the moment is the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. And pretty much since September last year, we were having retrogrades. We had Mars retrograde. We've also had Venus retrograde. We had eclipses, and it was really introducing this new nodal phase that we're currently in. So for a lot of you, where you stand right now, you may be saying, why is this being referenced at this point in time? And it is because I do think we need to go easy on ourselves at this point in time, considering we have had an incredible amount of retrogrades, a lot of transitions that we are going to be experiencing this year, where we're having ingresses with planets into new zodiac signs, bringing on new signatures. So if you are feeling less than optimistic at this point in time, you may have found over the last few weeks you were almost spiritually going into a frequency of mourning, like you were leaving something behind. It wasn't really for some of us, it might have been a very positive thing. It might have been a revelation that we really needed to leave a circumstance behind. It wasn't resonating with us. Mars was one of the worst Mars retrogrades I personally have experienced, probably because my birth chart has been lit up like a Christmas tree. So thus the reason everything has taken so much longer. I'm always acutely aware of the signature of Mars and what it can do. And the analogy I do tend to give is that it's like pushing a wheelbarrow uphill and you're pushing against the grain. So you're going to need a lot more patience. There's going to be a lot more focus in that particular area. And for both Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, and Mars retrograde that we've had, plus the two nodal eclipses we were having from September moving into 2025, that frequency alone has been quite a bit to chew off. It is like we are moving between two worlds. So the context of the name of this video is Astro Talk. Will you take the challenge? Now, the reason why I have named this video, Will You Take the Challenge, is because it is like we are attempting to balance, and we have learned some very karmic lessons, especially linking to Uranus and Taurus. We're trying to balance things and stay as stable as possible, especially with what we do see in the collective at the moment, with the economy, with things that's happening to do with trade. That really was connecting back to the Venus transit. So with the attempt we are moving through at the moment with the nodes, like I said, the dates up here are on the screen of the previous times that we did have the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. So if you were to look back in history, depending on how old you are, think back to some of those things that were going on. There are new placements at the moment, so it's not going to be exactly the same, but there are going to be some frequencies. Now, I also do remember that we did, I think it was 2017, 2018, Chiron was in Pisces, and it did feel like a great awakening. It can be very psychic in nature. And Neptune has transitioned, and it is going to move back briefly into Pisces later, but we'll talk about that further in this very quick update. So the context of the North Node in Pisces is, how can I sum it up in a can? It does feel like endings in order to achieve new beginnings, but it might be our attempt. We do need to be less critical. We are going to need to be really using our spiritual practices to balance us. Keeping organized. It could be all of a sudden you really, especially over the last few months, you've realized that you've just got to declutter. Virgo also can be to do with your wellness. It's like, okay, I need to eat cleaner, or I need to kick some habits, I need to change some things up in my routine. But also behavioral patterns can come up with the axis of those two frequencies. So there is a particular ability for us, and it is a Venus energy on top of that, where we do need to be cautious at the moment in our vibration relating to the things that we're attracted to the things that we want to achieve. But it is very psychological in nature. That's one thing I definitely will say. So with that frequency, if it being very, very psychological, you get to the point where it's not necessarily that we leave the South Node behind. The South Node is a place in which we have theoretically collectively become stagnant. So a lot of subjects will come up to do, again, I'll put the disclaimers. It's not medical advice, okay? The medical field, health, banking, diet, nutrition, wellness. We saw a lot of layoffs when it came to bookkeepers to do with government individuals. So that is the South Node. Now it's not, and Virgo also is a very Mercury nature. So it's the things we do online, it's the communication, it's the way we express ourselves. It could be rules involved with that, especially via social media. And the North Node in Pisces is really, it can be to do with waters. And I did say it's very important that we actually do protect our waters. We also need to be very cautious about our emotions and how we are expressing them. Now, some good tips would be how to navigate this. And the reason this is quite key in the context of this month moving forward is because things are going to start amping up, especially as we do move into the next eclipse energy. However, we do have a portal at the moment where a majority of the planets are direct for the first time. We do have Pluto retrograde, but again, I will mention that in a minute. So in that context, to balance, some tips I would probably give a lot of you guys, if possible, is be aware of where it is in your birth. You can go to Astro-Chat.com. There's a lot of different birth chart apps, and look at where you have those placements, or you can, again, book a reading with someone that you feel you resonate with. Knowing where that happens means you're going to be in that self-awareness. Now, we're going to move on to the next section, or we'll never get through it. Okay, so our previous moon was in the house Taurus. The Taurian energy is very Venus in nature. Again, around electricity in the home, our money, our wealth, the cost of things. Taurus also can relate to relationships changing and the finances surrounding those circumstances within the household. Again, it will directly impact more so where you were potentially at. But we have had, to a degree, because Uranus has been there, a sort of element of instability. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. It created necessary change that was required. It's sort of like this dynamic with Uranus linking to that moon that we had, that it does shake things up and it can be out of the ordinary. It's like, whoa, okay, well, that's extraordinary what's happened there. So we did see a lot of things, especially linking to trade, coming up with that new moon in Taurus, but it is a new chapter. The deepest moon we had was this month, and it kicked my butt because I do have quite a few placements linking to both Taurus and Scorpio. And so, you know, with that, it's very deep. I did hear an astrologer today really say, Scorpios, how do you do it? And, you know, that's a good question. So I feel that individuals that deal with the Scorpion energy, it's almost like you do need to understand the cycles of life, and it can be very depressing, but it's also a cycle of life. It's like, you know, planting a seed and it grows, and then it, you know, certain elements of it kind of die off and it regenerates back into the ground, and that cycle continues. It's like the serpent eating its tail. So Scorpio is acutely aware of cycles and endings and the expected, and having that spiritual attachment to things, and realizing that we do need to evolve. We do need to be gentle with ourselves, and it doesn't mean that we necessarily like that process, whatever it is. But in the end, it is a lighter vibration with an open door. And this is the frequency at this point in time we are moving through and away from, and prepping in this rebirth frequency to, as the title states, have this vibration where it's asking you, especially with Saturn ingressing, it is going to be asking you to level up, okay? Will you take the challenge? Now, the challenge is going to be very personal because it is going to be in a first house energy. And what is the first house? The first house is you. Yes, again, it will depend on where it is in your chart, but at a collective level, it's how everything is interconnected to everyone. Everyone will be impacted by the transit. Everyone in their own personal identity will feel a sense of responsibility in some area of their life, but it's also going to aid the Neptune energy to make your dreams come true and to be realistic. At the moment, really in the context of your past and where you want to go in your future, and feeling that you have a certainty around those things, it may have been difficult for you to achieve that. Now, it's not to say that that's going to be permanent, because what I do feel is as Saturn ingresses, in which I feel for a lot of us, we have picked up on it through the ethers psychically, it's going to give us a feeling that we are moving into a new chapter, that we're moving into a new, how could I put it? Into a new way of being. Okay, let's see. And that new chapter is going to be quite psychological, but it doesn't mean to say that needs to be a bad thing. It just feels in general that it's going to be a feeling where we directly are needing to have a open mind when it comes to this. But it could be that you are going to be balancing both worlds simultaneously while you're trying to transition through. So don't be surprised if that's something that is really coming up for you. Just going to do something. I'll be 5 seconds. Okay. Because I realized that I went into a different stream deck, and that was why it wasn't live. So I've had to make this live, and I'll have to delete the other one. But nevertheless, if you are arriving, I told you Mercury is literally messing with me. So if you are landing in here 15 minutes into this update, you can always go back and you can see this from the beginning after, but we're going to continue into it. Like I mentioned, we are doing a live update and we are connecting in with this. So I'm telling you, it's late. I saved it under the super chats. I opened it up in the window in the super chats and not in the direct stream. So I'll have to chop that one down and keep this live. So we're going to continue. For those of you that are new and you're in the house, I'm your host tonight. We are covering the energy of the astrology. And we have already talked about the context of the nodes. We're also discussing at the moment the moon in Scorpio, which was deep, very, very deep for many of us. And for many of us, that energy is to the point where you can feel despair, to the point it feels like a death and a rebirth. This also can be a positive thing. It can be shedding skin. It can be getting to a place where you feel things no longer resonate with you. Your instincts are going to be acutely important this year. But if this deep energy has felt like it's interrupted your sleep, it's interrupted you feeling balanced, there were lots of challenges we experienced last week. So if everything felt like it was going wrong, it's not going to remain that way. We did have some hard aspects that were causing that conflict. Now, as we do proceed forward, we are having the moon in Gemini, and this is where we will have mid-month a shake-up. And this can be very positive energy in a sense with these new chapters. So, hold on to your hats, because as we do have the sun ingress, the energy is going to completely change, but we will discuss that in a moment. Now, like I said, we had the sun in Taurus. 20th is when we will have the sun ingressing into Gemini, which can be, it can be very intellectual. You're going to have to find ways of not going crazy. Now, what do I mean by that? It's intellectual. If you think at the moment, and I do want to prepare a lot of you for this, it is going to get more busy with your mind. If you have felt quite scattered of late, Neptune ingressed into Aries, okay? So where you felt you would like to be in hermit mode, you might have felt with the transit very spiritual and Zen, not necessarily at all times. With it in Aries, it's very get up and go. We need to do something. We need to do something to make these things happen. So you need to balance how much you take on. That would be one recommendation I make. And I think with the retrogrades, they have done us some service because they've given us some time, maybe to rip our hair out and pull our teeth out, but to really mull over the things that we value, be it's our relationships, it's our friendships, it's our career, it's our money, family, being seen, having time to play. These things are the things we all spiritually have been reassessing. With that, now that the planets have put us through some grief, and most of them are direct, mid-month is when, as we move towards the sun ingressing, your mind's going to be extremely busy. You're going to have to find ways of grounding yourself. You're going to have to find ways of, if you can't maintain that thought process, of you actually writing things down if it does get too overwhelming for you. But creativity, going towards those goals, looking at that Jupiter energy, it's going to be very ambitious. I would be cautious of being overzealous, especially because we do have the South Node. So it's like, how could I subtly say, don't go broke. It's like, be realistic with the things you're doing and gradually do that kind of transition to the top of the mountain. But be careful with it because, again, the sun there, Jupiter there, Jupiter is going to be ingressing soon as well. So we have the 27th. So the 20th, we have the sun, which your attention will go there. And we also will have the moon 7 days later joining it. Now, Mercury at the moment is in the house of Taurus. Mercury also the day before will be moving into Gemini. That's the reason I'm saying do not overschedule yourself, for goodness sakes. Okay, please, please, please do not overschedule yourself. You are going to be busy. Pay attention on the road. Communication, conversations, negotiations. Be aware that we need to be quite cautious in the way we express ourselves. If you have been frustrated with the situation, Venus and Aries, it enters, it's been moving through these transitions. It's going to get to a point it will get a bit racy. So just be careful. Now, Jupiter at the moment is direct. Jupiter will enter Cancer on the 11th of November. Saturn is ingressing this month. It's joining the club with Neptune. Now, am I excited about this one? Yes and no. Okay, it's going to make us very responsible. It's going to teach us some lessons. They do tend to say that for those that are Saturnian in nature, Capricorns or Libras can do quite well with this placement. All of us collectively in the end will. And Saturn tends to, whatever they put you through, like a drill sergeant, they're going to reward you at the very end of it. So where we have had Saturn in Pisces, look to your charts. You will end up, if you have done the right thing and you have put hard work in and you have felt restricted in those areas, at the moment, you may find, as we get closer to that ingress into that placement, that some of that area loosens up, but it will re-ingress back into that location again. So don't go for broke. But that it's going to give you some blessings in that area. And yes, the moon in Gemini, with Jupiter in Gemini, it does feel like a very intellectual time that we are going to be really starting to get moving, getting things done, getting things to the point that we actually can get the ball rolling. So did we finish that one? Yeah, so we're just going to ingress back, which we will cover those dates later. Venus also, just to double check I didn't have the banner incorrect. Yep, still in Aries. So again, like I mentioned, Saturn moving into that location, we are going to need to be structured in a routine. We are going to be more attracted to routine as well, especially from the Venus energy. So if you find within your love life, within your money, that you are starting to be more responsible with it, especially where it comes to goals. Now, yes, obviously from the collective energy of what we're seeing, it's very natural that that would come in. However, Saturn is going to aid us with establishing foundations. Those that are really looking at businesses and wanting to achieve businesses or do something in that department, it will aid you in structuring it. The only thing I can say is, like myself, you're going to feel very frustrated in attempting to get the things off the ground. So it's going to take extra energy. You're going to be burning the midnight oil. You're going to be attempting to multitask and to utilize your time in a very resourceful way, but also keeping incredibly responsible in the area depending on where it falls in your birth chart. But it will help you structure things so that you are being realistic. You also can find through it, you're going to be quite rebellious. So where it does come to communication with individuals, if you have felt more shitty lately or like assertive, a lot of assertiveness, I kept saying the fives earlier, which is a lot to do with change. I'm not surprised post Scorpio moon, because it's almost like, ask universe and you shall receive. So all of a sudden it's like everything starts changing and you're like, Penny little, the sky's falling down. You wanted it, you had outgrown a situation, but sometimes we get into our comfort zone. And so we do have these big changes this year. This year is really an acceptance of leaving the old behind and moving into the new. Not necessarily will it be smooth sailing, but in the end, we will be ready for the next year where we can really be in that flow with it. So this is a preparation. And if you do your due diligence and you put the best foot forward in those areas, you will be more prepared as we do move into 2027, 2028. But it can feel emotional, and it is absolutely okay to take that time and to process those things. It's absolutely necessary, to be perfectly honest. It's not something that you can fast track. You need to be very gentle with yourself. You need to be very honest with yourself. And, if you are getting quite stuck, look at it from a point of view of saying at that point in time, in a very disconnect sort of frequency, that you don't have all the answers right now, and that's okay. And that's very much linking to the North Node in Pisces. It's like, having your spiritual practices. And so a spiritual practice can be something to the degree of, I'm not going to let myself go crazy over this. I don't really have a solution right now. So what I'm going to do is sit back, hope for the best, and, just pause. Just pause, and the information will come towards you. So Jupiter's moving us forward. Yep, Jupiter's moving us forward. Saturn, by the 25th of May, is going to feel like a bit of a stickler, a bit of a battle axe. It can be that we're hunking down. Those of you that do have that placement, you may find also, and this is just a kind of FYI, you may find that if you wanted to get fit, it's going to help you. Jupiter tends to expand things. So those that went through that first house or the sixth house, or where else could I say, or it's a personal Jupiter return, you might have felt that, for some, it could be that situations in your life expand. For others, it can be to counteract that and balance it. If you wear loose clothing, the energy turns to more areas in your life over yourself, or it can be you expand. Now, how can that happen? It can be because you're being deeply creative. So you're really, working on something, you're sitting a lot, you're quite restricted because you're doing quite a bit. You could be studying very, ninth house energy. So again, once it transitions, what does tend to happen, especially the Saturn moving there, is it's going to help bring that back down. But it's also going to help you actually structure things so that you can have movement forward. So Uranus is direct at the moment. Uranus will be exiting Taurus. And, I would say June and July, I do think big transition. But I'm also very wary of this energy here. This is a Venus sign. Especially with Uranus involved, that transition over, I want you guys to be prepared for that. Uranus moving into Gemini has a bit of history behind it. I will go into the history later. We don't have a lot of time tonight. But it is going to ingress back again before it settles in for its stay in the house of Gemini. Neptune already is in the house of Aries right now. Like I said, those areas in your chart where you have Pisces, pull up your birth chart, go to Astro-Chat.com, plug it in, just type Astro-Chat birth chart. You can put your birth chart energy in, and it literally is going to tell you where these placements are. And if you need some help, you can PM me or feel free to book a reading. Neptune will go retrograde in July. And it's funny because at the degree point of where it is, it's almost like no sooner are we having revelations. And I was always like, sort of, how would I put it? With these areas and self-awareness of where they fall in my personal chart, for instance, I'm acutely aware of not to jump the gun with things, to take my time. It's almost like this failure to launch in certain areas because you're kind of like, okay, we've made a decision. It's quite cemented. Saturn hasn't even arrived yet. Saturn will ingress. And then as we move to July, Neptune going retrograde, it's going to give us time to think. Okay. It's going to have us rethinking things. Aries is zealous. Okay. It wants to get in. It's got no problem with doing it. This is going to make that commitment energy in the house of Aries very committed, requiring to be committed. So we do need to be sure about what we're getting into because it's going to require commitment and very responsible commitment, to say the least. So that part, I can't say I'm looking forward to too much, but nevertheless, it's a process. So it will go retrograde July the 4th, and it will ingress back into Pisces again. Watch out for that date there. Save the video, put it somewhere. I do put posts up in the community, which tends to give you the energy to cover what the dates are, where positions are. What else do I need to give you a heads up on? Pluto. Pluto is at the moment, that one's not loading. Don't know. Okay, so the retrograde. We do have Pluto retrograde at the moment. It has settled in to its position in Aquarius for its very long stay, but the next shake-up energy definitely is going to be July. Now, what advice could I give you guys? This doesn't have to be a negative thing. Do you like the bumblebees? I showed it to the members the other day. I was like, we need to have some happiness. This doesn't have to be a bad thing. What can be happening at the moment is you're finding that you are going to be planning, you're going to be more motivated. I would definitely, with your communication and your emotions, if they're coming up, I'll be super cautious. Because what can happen is misunderstandings can occur and we can actually get quite blunt. With Mars at the moment, with its position, the one thing I would be cautious of, let me think. A lot of celebrities are going to be there, which I'm not surprised. This can be sports individuals. It can be individuals transcending over. Leo also can be to do with superstars, celebrities. It also can be a point because we had Mars sitting there. It's like, very focused on trying to get somewhere, very focused on where we believe we need to go. So we can be very fixed at the minute. And there can be tension. It can be tension to do with our childhood. It can be tension to do with being seen, feeling seen, not being honoured for the effort we put into things. We can take things extremely personal, especially with Venus in Aries. So keep that in mind. But definitely, I would say we are attempting and going to be, especially from the title, will you take the challenge? Saturn's asking us that question. It's going to put us through a couple of tests. It's going to ask us, are we ready to do these things? Now, it's not to say that we haven't had hard aspects. We have had some hard aspects. They have caused some difficulty. We are going to be having, let me have a brief look. Okay, so anything else there? So the 18th we have, and I am at the 18th right now, it's Jupiter sextiling Chiron. So this can be a time again, you're wanting to get things done. You're nurturing yourself. You're looking at the bigger picture. You're trying to have the confidence to move beyond this. You're trying to move into faith-based frequency. And again, it can be where you are looking at your wellness and fitness what other date do I need to? Okay, so I saw the 18th somewhere else as well. We do have Mercury squaring Mars. Oh, Battle of the Sexes, all right. I feel with the squares, the oppositions, the conjunctions, overall, getting into the mid-month, moving through that Gemini moon, we are going to be at all systems go. So I hope you trust the process. Feel free after the fact. Apologies that I didn't have it in the correct stream. Feel free to actually ask some questions, share a way of where these placements affected you. The future updates are going to cover the moon energy, the eclipses, where they fall for your zodiac. I may come back later if I have time to do a new moon in Gemini and talk about that energy as we are moving over into the next month. So I hope this helped. Thanks so much for joining. I hope to